This channel is a place where we can gather to radiate Christ. If you like this content, then don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can continue building fellowship and community through shared experiences. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to discuss today with Dr. Karyn Gordon, who's our leadership and relationship expert. And we are going to be talking today about social media and teens. I'm so thankful that Karyn is here to enter into this conversation. I'd like to share a little bit about Karyn. She is the CEO and co-founder of DK Leadership, a global leadership coaching company, and the purpose is to develop great leaders at work and home. Her unique ability is simplifying research in a passionate and practical way. My goodness, she has spoken to over more than 500,000 people across 17 countries, Fortune 500 companies, family businesses, entrepreneurs, and a variety of different things. And recently she was on Good Morning America. She's been Forbes, New York Times, and Cityline. Karyn is a very, very busy entrepreneur, and I am so excited to be able to talk to her today. One of the things that I love is that she not only loves working with adults, but she loves working with teens and families, and she has a passion because she has her doctorate in marriage and family. And I know from personal experience that she has impacted my children because of her connection to Muskoka Woods through the CEO program, which is a fantastic leadership program for kids, teens, ages 15 to 17. And she speaks life into them and helping them understand their overall emotional intelligence and how that can impact them as a leader in their sphere of influence. So I am so excited to welcome this incredible speaker and author of a book called The 3 Chairs, which is a breakthrough leadership book for the 21st century. And you need to pick that book up as well. It is fantastic. So welcome today, Karyn. So Karyn is here today to give us some insights. Even though we know social media is here to stay, that is agreed upon, but we don't have to let it run our lives. So Karyn, how are we going to not live in fear as parents? And how are we going to simultaneously navigate this with our teens today? What do you think?
Okay, goodness. Well, first of all, Sandy, thank you so much for having me join you. What an honor. And I just love you and I love the work you're doing. So incredibly important. Obviously, we're both moms of teenagers. So
yes,
this is something that we, certainly as a professional, for me, I know this, I teach this, but I also am living it, right?
Yes,
so I'm kind of
absolutely.
I'm in this, right? Like I'm in this journey with everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so
yes.
This is a big topic. I was just in Arizona this past weekend and with business leaders, and this is they were all asking me about what the parameters and boundaries actually should be around social media.
Right.
So you're absolutely right. Okay, so the first thing is to realize that this is not going to go away. So
right.
This is not going to go away. We just need to kind of learn how to adapt it. That being said, one of the things I really try to encourage parents to think about is that there's culture and then there's counterculture. And, there's culture, things that we just simply cannot control. I can't control the fact that there's Instagram and
right.
TikTok and Snapchat. You can't even keep up with it all.
No.
I can control how certainly I engage with it, and I certainly can control what I teach my own boys
right.
with it, and also what I'm kind of coaching parents. So
right.
So what I'm going to be sharing in many ways is going to be what I call countercultural parenting, which is I want all parents. I think this is kind of a good way to think about it first. Is think first about what is your overall objective as raising kids.
Right.
So instead of we start kind of getting into the weeds of like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen with college, university, social media, all these different topics. I just encourage parents to take a big breath and really start to think. What is your vision that you are really trying to help your kids? Just by the time your kids finish adolescence, what's your overall goal? And, just taking that kind of high level approach, it just starts putting things a little bit in perspective. So a lot of parents will say things like, I want my kids to be confident or self-disciplined or goal-oriented or relational or purposeful or spiritual or whatever it is.
Right.
And then you start there and then you kind of go the next level because, social media is one variable that obviously that all of our kids have to kind of face. And so if our goal is, for example, to help our kids be more confident, which is certainly one topic. And I would say, actually, Sandy, confidence and self-discipline are the two that often come up the most in parents.
Right. I can see that.
So for people listening, if you're like, I can connect to that. Okay, so now let's go to the next step, which is, okay, so then if our goal is to help our kids be confident and self-disciplined, then what are we going to do with social media? Are we going, what are the parameters and what do we need? What structure do we need to have in place to really help our kids with that?
Yeah.
And so it's just a bit of a helpful framework, because otherwise we can get into the weeds with this topic pretty fast.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So with the self-discipline, that was a little bit easier actually.
Mm-hmm.
So the self-discipline, the easier way to think about it is social media is not bad, it's not wrong, it's not evil, right? So it's not, I think we have to kind of think big picture on this, but how much power we give to it can become really destructive and toxic pretty fast.
Oh yes.
So the way that we can start doing it is start setting boundaries around the social media. So parents will set up all kinds of different boundaries, and depending on the age of your children, you can set different boundaries. So I have clients all around the world, and I have clients in different cultures and different socioeconomic groups, and it's very interesting to listen to how do parents actually start setting up the boundaries with this. And so
must be fascinating.
It's actually really interesting. And so I have some clients over the years where they have set their boundary that their kids are not going to be doing or having access to social media until they're in high school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, they're not this model is not very popular.
No.
A lot of kids.
Yeah.
However, a lot of parents will say that once you start, it's almost impossible to kind of go back.
Yeah.
You can, obviously, but so I have some parents that's the decision that they make, depending on, with where they're at. I have other parents who say, you know what, I'm going to have my kids not start till middle school. I have other parents say, you know what, the boundary is going to be, I'm going to make sure that they're only on it for 2 hours a day.
Right.
Or the boundary is that, they can only have it for, 2 hours a day, or that, we have no cell phones kind of by the dinner table. So the first step you want to think about around that self-discipline is what boundaries do you want to kind of instill with your kids? And the best way to do it, to be quite honest, Sandy, is you actually have a discussion with your kids.
Right.
So
I think that's
kind
great.
of the authoritative kind of, I'm the parent, the child, you're going to do as I say. It's going to be much, much better to really say to your kids, listen, I want you to be confident. I want you to be self-disciplined. This is a really important leadership skills. I want us to figure out a plan so that we can both kind of get behind it on what you think is actually the best. And so the boundaries around the self-discipline would be kind of the first place to start.
Yeah. I think what's great about what you're saying with the boundaries and the framework, those two words are really key, because it all leads into the countercultural perspective, because what you do in your family, what we've done in our family, I know is countercultural, because, our kids are like, well, I don't have a phone yet. And we waited until grade 9. That was kind of our goal. And teaching them these skills, these leadership skills, which you do so brilliantly. And I have to do a little bit of a plug here, because we did connect at Muskoka Woods. I think that's actually where we first met. But you take all of these beautiful gifts that you have and this knowledge and expertise, and you've brought it into Muskoka Woods, into this leadership program, the CEO program. And so, believe it or not, 4 of the kids of our 5 have gone through CEO, and they have each had you to be able to help them walk through their emotional intelligence questions, and how to understand who they are as a person, and also developing a leadership skill, which flows into self-discipline and boundaries, which flows into social media and boundaries with relationships and all those different things. And I think it's so critical that kids hear from experts, whether it's like yourself online or wherever they can find somebody like you, but preferably you, how they can bring this into their life so that they don't go into their young adulthood. This is my concern, of wasting their life all in front of the screen. And I know a lot of parents that are listening right now would be thinking, but I can't take it back, Karyn. I can't take it back.
Right.
But I think you've brought up a great point. That's where you are the parent and they're the child. And so maybe speak to that a little bit. How would you encourage a parent to kind of break that barrier almost?
Yeah. No, it's a great question, Sandy. And I think part of it, my philosophy and my parenting philosophy kind of around this is, when we've got children, when we've got children, we are really like a manager, right? Like we're managing exactly when they eat, when they go to bed, their school, all that, right? So we're like the manager. But but middle school is the time to kind of transition yourself out of that role. And so by the time your kids enter high school, you're really like a partner, not a manager. Now, as a partner, as parents, you still have veto powers. So you're not giving decision making to your children. You're not all of a sudden becoming friends with your kids, but you are certainly starting to be more collaborative with them.
Yes.
And trying to kind of like figure out, and really try to work with them and teach them what you're, trying to really teach them in terms of decision making. And so to try to get your kids on board, so why it often doesn't work is that if parents are too authoritative. If they're too authoritative, or if they're actually given too much power to their kids. And if you give too much power to your kids, you're going to have entitled kids.
Yeah, it's such a tough balance.
It's a really tough balance. And so the balance is that partnering model. So you're partnering with your kids saying, listen, I really want you to develop leadership skills. I want you to develop self-discipline. It's one of the cornerstones of the most successful people. Consistently, we see that the studies are showing that if you want to be happy in your life, you've got to develop self-discipline. And oh my goodness, social media is a wonderful vehicle to actually help us teach this and build this muscle. Okay, so that's kind of, so it's really important to kind of give that high level. And because too often parents are just kind of like, okay, do this, don't do this. And then kids are like, what? What are you talking about?
Right.
Like, nobody does that, right? So you have to, it's really important to explain why. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Why are we setting these parameters? And so it's really, so social media is an amazing practical way to actually teach self-discipline actually to our kids.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think if they don't see us modeling that self-discipline, obviously, I think the answer is very clear that they aren't going to respect what, we're saying to them as what they should be doing. However, at the same time, we've had this at Battle. I'm sure you've had this in your own home, that there are different things going on with our phone with adults than there are with teens. And so I may be on what they seem is a social media, but they might be on TikTok. So it's not like I'm better or they're better, I'm worse, they're worse.
Sure.
But it's like helping them define what is useful and what is beneficial, and then showing them, put it away, give yourself time to be with people, to do things with people, one-on-one, eye contact, discussing things, talking, it's almost a lost art, Karyn. It makes me so sad,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a really good question. So it's really, really important to foster healthy communication around this topic. So what I don't want parents to do is have this dogmatic, authoritative approach to this topic, because you're just going to push your kids away. And it's really, really important to help your kids become critical thinkers. So questions, key questions can be things like, what do you think is a good amount? What do you think is a good amount? Just out of curiosity, what do you think is a good amount for you to be actually on your phones per day? What do you think is a good amount? So you can start thinking about time. The other one you can think about is where they go. So you can say, I'm curious, what different social platforms and where do you go helps you really feel the best about yourself. So now we're pulling into confidence.
Yes.
So are there certain kind of like people that you follow that you feel really inspired by? You feel better about yourself. Which ones? And then you offer the other side to it. It's like, are there certain ones that you go to that you actually feel worse about yourself?
Yeah.
What are they? So let's start kind of like leaning into this.
Yeah.
You can actually even start setting up boundaries. Like I've got some clients over the years where they've actually set boundaries around who they actually have. Like they have private profiles. They have a way for only kind of like friends, that people that they know that are kind of like trusted in their circle. Get access to what they're posting. So it's a way to kind of protect yourself in terms of like, comments and stuff that are being said. So, so you want to, you want to kind of like get your kids and your teens to really lean into it. It's interesting. I've got twin boys, as you know, and and this is definitely a gender difference I've seen that a lot of parents listening may or may not be able to connect to it. But I find this is definitely more of a topic with girls. And with boys, a lot of the topic more is around gaming,
right?
You know,
yes.
and you
oh,
know,
I can relate, Karyn.
Yeah, well, you've got both. You've got both. So
yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about. So our kids actually are not into social media hardly at all. I use it primarily for work and a little bit for personal. As a really fast way to kind of stay connected with a lot of people, but for the
that's
most
logical.
part,
That makes sense.
Yeah, I just, but that's just kind of like what I've kind of figured out for myself. And I call it your social media style. You want to kind of figure out what's your style as it relates to social media.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You know, for me, it's mostly business, a little personal. People like to kind of see with what I'm doing in my personal life. But for the most part, I use it for my business. And then other people, they just use it for their business. Some people just use it for their keeping contact with friends. But so you want to kind of get to know what your style is, and then what are the healthy boundaries to help you with that.
Yeah, I think I love your term. You talked about the self-regulating, and I think some kids have a leaning or a bent toward being able to self-regulate. And I think as parents, we have to be right on top of that, especially when they're younger. Just kind of start watching their tendencies or their personality traits compared to maybe other kids in your family, and what might work for one child may not work for another. And that's a really hard thing to do. But when it comes to social media, it's almost a little bit of like a blanket statement in your home where this is what we do a little bit, and then things change as they get older. And like with my youngest, for example, she has an ability to self-regulate in certain ways that the other kids didn't at this age. And she doesn't have a phone, but she does have an iPad to use for, a few little games, and she likes to be able to talk to her friends, but it's here in the house and that's it. But she actually said, Mom, I don't even want Instagram. So we had set up an account for her.
Oh, okay.
And then she just said, she goes, Mom, I just don't feel like I need it. And I thought, that is incredible. I went,
Sandy, you got like
whoa.
The gold standard there.
And I just said, okay,
good for her.
That was really kind of exciting in some ways, just because I thought, well, that's really neat that you can actually recognize that about yourself. So maybe for this season, because she's still very young, then let's wait until you feel like you would like to be on it. And so I thought, that's not going to happen with every child. That just so happened to be something that was recent in our home. And I thought those are little moments to kind of encourage them. And, just let them know that that's a wise decision. And again, it goes with a self-discipline and then building confidence in them, because they're making a decision almost without me saying anything. And that's not common, but it was a gratitude moment, right?
For sure, Sandy. And that's a big win for you as a family, because, for her to be able to be self-aware enough going, you know what, actually, I don't need it. She's actually making a countercultural decision for herself.
She really did,
age, which is so incredible.
Yeah.
And both of my boys, one actually, no, actually, I think they're both. Neither of them actually are on it. Well, they're on some, but not the main ones.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's more like so. My kids also have kind of figured out a similar one. They're like, why are people like? There's just so much time that's wasted on it. Yeah. So, we've really tried to just talk to them about. I like it for, again, business, and I also like it as a way to stay in contact with a lot of people that I know. Yeah. So that to me is the value for me. And so you want to kind of, again, another good critical question for your kids. Like, okay, if you do want it, why do you want it?
Why do you want it?
And why do you want it? And let's lean into that. And or why do you not want it? Yeah. And if you do want it, okay, great. So what do you think is the healthy boundaries that you think would be healthy for you? Mm-hmm. When I've done leadership events for students over the years, Sandy, a lot of kids, when I get them to set goals for themselves, a lot of them will actually set a goal around limiting how much that they're actually on their social media.
Isn't that interesting? That's neat.
It is. And it is neat because, but it's after I ask the question, like, what do you think, like, what's your goal with it? Why do you want it? And what boundary do you think would help you so that you're kind of achieving the goal? So just having kind of those parameters kind of keep us focused. And again, it's not that it's bad or it's wrong. It's just that we just want to make sure that we are always in control of it instead of in control of us.
That's so good. And I think, and you can obviously relate to this too, but when our kids were in that baby toddler preschool stage, we weren't even debating how much social media they were going to be on when they were 16. So what would you say to a parent right now who's thinking about having children, newly married, toddlers, preschoolers, and they just, and they're almost, and I would agree, a lot of them are living in fear, and some of them have gone to the extreme where there's no social media, no TV, nothing, which, you know what, every household has to make their own decision, their own path. But what would you say to kind of a younger mom right now that's just beginning to raise her child in a culture that really is very different than what we had 15 to 20 years ago?
I would say you want to parent based on values and principles, not by fear. Fear is, you never want to make decisions based on emotion. Emotion is wonderful to pay attention to, but it is not the right source for decision making.
Yeah, that's
so
amazing.
You want to figure out again, there's lots and lots. I've been doing this work for almost 30 years, and it's interesting.
That's incredible, Karyn.
It wasn't even around. It wasn't even around when I first started working with families, right? But there was always teen, and people were always freaked out about having teenagers and scared of it. Teens are great. I love the adolescents. It's actually it's my favorite age group. I love this. So, but if you just kind of think about what are the values and the principles that I want to parent by,
so good,
and let that be the guiding light, not fear, because because fear is it's not a reliable source for decision making for one. And the other thing is emotion is very contagious. So if you're afraid, guess how your kids are going to feel? They're going to feel afraid.
They'll catch it.
And they'll start mirroring it. And so it's going to create a very anxious household.
Yeah, true.
Which you don't want. So you want to make your decisions based on values and principles. These are the things. And that's why I kind of started with at the beginning.
Right.
Get parents to really start thinking about what are your values and your goals by the time your kids finish adolescence. How do you want, what is your end game?
Yeah.
And then you kind of go back and it's almost like you're kind of creating a parenting strategy plan on what are the things I need to do to make sure that my kids are developing these leadership skills by the time they finish adolescence.
And, I think the best part of this, the word that I want people to remember the most is countercultural, because it's okay to be against the norm. It's okay to make a decision that works for your family that may not work for your neighbors or the kids at school. But I think we need to do that. We need to ground ourselves and be rooted in this wisdom that we know only comes from above. And we need to have that and walk with that in strength. And I know, Karyn, we've got lots going on for our evenings tonight. And I just want to thank you so much for this amazing insight and wisdom into our social media trends today with our teens. I really appreciate your time and what you've shared with us today.
Thank you so much, Sandy.
Oh, it's been a privilege, and I look forward to maybe another discussion another time.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks so much, Sandy. Have a great night.
All right, you too.